And now, my friends, let's turn our attention to the weekend's film offerings, Freeview film offerings. You know, we all get our free listings magazines on a Sunday, sometimes on a Saturday, which means by the following weekend, they're lining the budgie's cage, if such things still go on. So to help you out, it's me, Paul Ross, with 3 Freeview film recommendations for the weekend, and Van Connor with exactly the same, normally slightly superior and slightly more quirky, and he's better informed about the films. Van Connor, co-host of Off-Screen Podcast, and a lot more besides, joins us once again. Now, good morning, Van. How's your week been, mate? Have you seen any good new films this week?
Oh, do you know, I saw an amazing movie this week. I saw The Blackening this week, which is really good. It's like a horror satire, like Friends in a Cabin in the Woods, but the idea is they're all African Americans, so they subvert all the classic tropes of, like, you know, what befalls black people in horror movies. Really funny, really clever, worth seeing. That's called The Blackening. It's out in cinemas today.
Good tip there. And your first choice is a rather fine movie as well, is it? Like one of the kind of... of its time, it's one of the absolute classics, I think.
But, you know, this is one of my favourite movies. This is in my top 20 of all-time movies. My top 20 favourite movies ever will include 1991's Point Break. Not the garbage remake that we had, 6 or 7 years ago with which was, I forget, I can't remember who was in it. Ray Winston was in it. That's how bad it was. But no, the original and best. Catherine Bigelow's 1991 Trailblazer, which I believe was originally intended as a James Cameron vehicle, until his future wife would then take over. She, of course, would go on to become the first ever Oscar-winning female director
for The
Hurt Locker, yeah. This stars Keanu Reeves as the FBI agent Johnny Utah, who goes undercover with a group of surfers who he thinks and suspects may be the group of bank robbers known as the ex-presidents, so named for the rubber masks of various presidents that they wear whilst committing their robberies. This would get remade about 10 years later, almost 10 years exactly later, as The Fast and the Furious, and then give birth to one of the biggest franchises in the history of cinema. But you know what? Nobody does it like Keanu and Patrick Swayze. And of course, you've got to shout out the likes of Gary Busey in there, as well as Angelo Papas. And it's with Gary Busey and John C. McGinley, Dr. Cox from Scrubs, as the police captain, that I present to you this clip, which is one of my favourite lines of dialogue from the movie. You can see this tonight at 10:40 on BBC One. If you've never seen Point Break, you have not lived yet. It is 100% pure adrenaline, as it says on the tin. And I give you Johnny Utah basically justifying how he spends his days.
Here we go. And when can we see this film again? Remind us, Van.
10:40 tonight on BBC One.
Here we go.
Harv, we're working undercover. It takes time. We produced a few...
No! Let me tell you what you've produced. Over the last 2 weeks, you two have produced exactly squat! During which time, the ex-presidents have robbed 2 more banks! Now, for Christ's sake, does either one of you have anything even remotely interesting to tell me?
Caught my first tube this morning, sir.
That's a surfing term for those who don't know, isn't it? And that's obviously the ever so slightly wooden there, deliberately downplay Keanu Reeves. It's a great film, that is Point Break, an absolute masterpiece. Now, I like the film Creed. It isn't an absolute masterpiece, but it's a worthy start of a franchise, and it's a worthy addition, I think, to the Rocky canon. It's on tonight, 10:45 ITV. I think there have been 2 sequels so far, haven't there? I think another one's in the pipeline, isn't it? At least I think Creed 4 might be on the way. Has it already? Maybe I've missed it, I don't know. But basically, it's the story of Apollo Creed's son. Didn't really know his dad. He wants to become a boxer. He has got the eye of the tiger, although people think he's privileged, and he gets advice, as you might expect, from somebody who knows an awful lot about underdogs winning in boxing. It's almost Rocky by numbers with a decent hip-hop soundtrack. But I think there's something very likeable about this film.
Absolutely. And of course, it's yet another pairing between Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler then goes on to do Black Panther, and then casts Michael B. Jordan as the villain. They had worked together on Fruitvale Station before this as well, and they're very clearly a team that work quite well together. So Michael B. Jordan directed the most recent Creed 3, with Coogler still writing the screenplay and producing. So there's clearly a partnership that works. And it is a Rocky spin-off, but it is its own thing. It works very much as its own solitary thing. You don't need to come to this from the Rocky universe, but it's kind of a nice gateway drug to get the kids onto all Balboa, you know?
Great stuff. So it's on 10:45 tonight, ITV, and here's a chunk of the trailer. It's Creed from 2015.
I've been fighting my whole life. It's not a choice for me. Every punch I ever thrown has been on my own. Nobody showed me how to do this. I'm ready.
Still a great film, that is. That's Creed. That's on tonight, 10:45 ITV.
Bang.
And your second recommendation is also a rather fine suggestion, is it not, Ben Connor?
Well, this is, you know me, I love an old literary adaptation, but I like it when they've got a modern spin. So you give me a 10 Things I Hate About You or a She's the Man, I'm your man. In this case, we're going with Jane Austen's Emma, readapted for Beverly Hills high school culture in the mid-1990s and making something of a breakout star of Alicia Silverstone in the process. I speak, of course, of Amy Heckerling's 1995 Clueless, which also, second film in a row to star a Scrubs alum, because John C. McGinley was in Point Break, and Donald Faison, Turk from Scrubs, is in this, alongside the late, great Brittany Murphy. Wally Shawn is in there, Jeremy Sisto, Breckin Meyer. There's a load of future teen stars at the time who become future young adult stars. You've got Cher Horowitz, played by Lisa Silverstone, who is effectively the modern day stand-in for Jane Austen's Emma. A year after this movie came out, we would get a new adaptation of Emma, starring Gwyneth Paltrow as well, so it was a bit of a strange one for audiences that year. You couldn't escape it. And, of course, we had that readapted 3 years ago as well with Anya Taylor-Joy. Yeah. And the story is timeless, and it works, in my opinion. This is the best version of it. So I'll pass you over for this clip. This is Cher Horowitz narrating the politics of dating in high school. And you can see this on Saturday afternoon on Film 4. At 2:40 in the afternoon.
Of course, in the novel, Emma is a marital busybody, trying to sort out everybody else's romances and almost missing out on her own true love. The same pertains in Clueless. Here we go.
Woman, why don't you be answering any of my pages?
I hate when you call me woman.
Where you been all weekend? What's up? You jeeping behind my back?
Jeeping?
Jeeping.
No, but speaking of vehicular sex, perhaps you can explain how this cheap Kmart hair extension got into the backseat of your car.
I don't know where that came from. That looks like one of your little stringy something or another's you got up in your hair.
I do not wear polyester hair, okay? Unlike some people I know, like Shawana. See, I'm outie. Bye.
Why do you gotta go there? Why do you gotta go there? Is it that time of the month again?
I don't know why John's going out with a high school boy. They're like dogs. You have to clean them and feed them, and they're just like these nervous creatures that jump and slobber all over you.
Ew! Get off of me! Ugh, as if.
I mean, of that ilk, and I've seen all those films because I've got daughters who are now in their 20s, but that, I think, of Mean Girls are possibly the best two. And Clueless is by far out there, with all that Valley Girls speak and stuff, and the fact they're so immensely and intensely privileged, but going through the same things that most teenagers seem to do. So that's Van's second offering. My second offering, I'm afraid, though, trumps both of those and my own early one. One of my favourite films of all time, an absolute masterpiece, directed by Carol Reed, a bloke, uncle of Oliver Reed. Carol Reed went on to make Oliver Twist, of course, to make that. And this is, I think it's the best British, or that strongly American and European film noir offering. 12:30, just after midday, tomorrow, BBC 2. Filmed in 1949, set in Vienna after the Second World War, when there's a huge black market. There are traders in medicines, including penicillin, some of which has been adulterated, leading to the maiming and blinding of children. So at the heart of this is an absolutely intensely tragic story, which you might expect because it was written by Graham Greene, novella. He did the screenplay as well. Not the entire screenplay, as you're about to learn. It's got Joseph Cotton as Holly, who's actually the friend of Harry Lime, and he goes to Vienna because he's heard his mate is dead, and then when he gets there, he's concerned that maybe there's some kind of cover-up, or has there been a murder, and of course it transpires that, in fact, and you're going to hear this in the clip, spoiler alert, Harry Lime isn't dead. He was the third man who carried away somebody else's body, hence the title. That's not giving too much away, because it's not really about the MacGuffin. It's not a bit about that side of it. It's also about will Joseph Cotton's character do the right thing? Will he betray his friend? And Harry Lime is one of the great monstrous creations, immensely seductive, immensely charming, the best opening shot, the best entrance, I would say, of any character in any film ever. The first time we see Harry, I mean, this is one of those moments of cinema, folks. The first time you see Harry Lime, if you've not seen it before, you will never forget this moment. And the chunk we've got is a bit of the speech that wasn't written by Graham Greene, but one of the most famous speeches, I would say, up there with one of the Reservoir Dogs speeches in movie history. It's written by Orson Welles himself, and he's talking to Holly Johnson, and he talks about he's basically trying to say to him, human beings, we love chaos, we love bloodshed, we love danger, we love risk, we love war, because out of those come all the great creative impulses. And then he leads us in, he meditates on what Switzerland might have given the world. He's slightly harsh on the Swiss, because they also gave us Toblerone, but it's on 12:30 tomorrow afternoon, BBC 2. If you've never seen it, do yourself a favour, make sure you catch it. If you have seen it, do yourself a favour, make sure you catch it. And here is the slightly, shall we say, cynical view of history from Harry Lime, as played by and written by Orson Welles.
Don't be so gloomy. After all, it's not that awful. Well, what the fella said. In Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love. They had 500 years of democracy and peace, and what did that produce? The cuckoo clock. So long, Holly.
And as on Carousel on the old zither, apparently Carol Reed saw or heard him performing at a cafe in Vienna and said, I want you to do the film music. And out of that became a global superstar. So, great film. That's tomorrow at 12:30. And my final offering is a film whose soundtrack was, until Thriller was released, the best-selling album of all time. It sold 40 million copies. And, of course, it's a soundtrack too. Great tracks on it. Walter Murphy's Big Apple Band, The Fifth of Beethoven's on it, Disco Inferno by the Tramps. I think Jungle Boogie's on. No,
I think Jungle Boogie might be. Yeah.
That's Cool in the Game, of course. And you've got all the Bee Gees classics, and of course you've got Yvonne Elliman. If I Can't Have You, I could go on and on and on, bore for England about the soundtrack. The film is also good. It's kind of early Sunday morning fever. It's on 1:05 Sunday morning. So effectively it's a Saturday choice, but I'm pushing the boat out. But it's on Film 4, and if you've not seen it for some time, it's surprising. It's not glammy and glitzy. There is that side of it, but it's very, very gritty. At times very moving, at times almost scary because of, the risks some of the characters take about life on the streets, young working class men and women in the state of New York or New Jersey or whatever, and their only escape is, if it's not crime and violence, and it's not, what with the other opposite sex or even the same sex, it is disco dancing. Released in 1977. That was the year that the Clash sang no Elvis, Beatles or the Rolling Stones in 1977. There was punk, there was disco dancing, and there was, of course, John Travolta. I mean, if you first one, he made a film before that. I think he was in The Boy in the Bubbling Carry, a couple of films before. But that double whammy, Grease and Saturday Night Fever, I think possibly only Eddie Murphy came close, didn't he, with a couple of his first two early releases, which are absolute corkers as well. So it's on 1:05 Sunday morning, Saturday Night Fever from 1977. What's not to love? Get dancing.
Well, I mean, I could dance with you, but, you're not my dream girl or nothing like that.
Are you as good in bed as you are on that dance floor?
Joe, you make it with some of these chicks. They think you gotta dance for them.
He's very good, huh? He's the best. Hey, man, he's great. He's the king out there.
John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever.
She can dance, you know that? She got the wrong partner, of course, but she can dance.
Okay, listen. I like it. We could dance together. That's it. We could just dance together and nothing more, nothing personal.
And if you ever get the chance to see, if you've never seen it, it's worth seeing once. The sequel, Staying Alive, directed by Sly Stallone. One of the strangest, I mean, and the ending is so unfeasible. It's almost hysterically funny. I mean, strange for that. It's my second, third and final recommendation. Now, I understand you're on the horns of a dilemma when it came to Sunday's choice for you, Van Connor. What was your also-ran? What was your runner-up?
My also-ran is Sunday night on Film 4 at 11:15. There is the most recent film from the great Paul Verhoeven. It's called Benedetta. It is the period piece lesbian nun romp, for lack of a better term. But, I thought it was on a bit too late, and also we wouldn't have been able to run a clip because it is nearly entirely subtitled, but it's absolutely the film you would expect from the words Paul Verhoeven made a lesbian nun romp.
He gave us the original RoboCop, didn't he, I think, Paul Verhoeven? Is that right?
He did,
Did he do Total
Basic
Recall?
Instinct, Showgirls, Starship Troopers. The man is a genius. His new film's just been announced today. The man makes true cinematic art. We don't have directors like him anymore. But so if you want something to see late on Sunday night, Benedetta is on. However, in the afternoon, I think this is a modern classic. It's one of the three biggies of 1999 that I think set the template for what Hollywood is now. It is The Mummy, is on ITV at 4:50 in the afternoon, starring Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, Oded Fehr, John Hannah, Arnold Vosloo as the titular mummy, and it is literally it's the action-adventure Indiana Jones-like riff on the classic, the classic Universal monsters tale, the unearthing the mummy's tomb, the mummy is unleashed upon, in this case, 1928 Egypt, and sets the 10 plagues loose upon humanity as he tries to resurrect his fallen bride. And the only people standing in his way are the swashbuckling soldier, who's downtrodden, down his luck soldier, the librarian and aspiring archaeologist, and her con artist brother. What's not to love? You must have seen this a dozen times.
I love this film. I love the sequel as well, I must say. And there are scenes and sequences in this which remind you of, how brilliant Indiana Jones was, but also how quickly people almost superseded the stunts in Raiders, which is almost sacrilege to say. But I think this Raiders, this film, it's a brilliant movie.
It really is. So you can see this perfect time as well, 4:15 on Sunday afternoon on ITV. I've got a clip for you, and this is Rick O'Connell, Brendan Fraser's character, justifying his worth to this mission that he's about to lead them on towards the mummy.
And before we get to the clip, tell us about Off Screen, your podcast with you and your pal Adam, which I think drops 8 o'clock this morning. Is that right?
Yeah, you can catch us on podcast platforms from 8 a.m. on the Off Screen show. Adam Ball and I talking about The Blackening. As I say, it's an absolute banger. You got it. It's a brilliant movie. If you can see the Blackening, do. There's also The Dive that's out this week about two sisters who are one of them's trapped at the bottom of the ocean. There's a new John Travolta movie actually, which is terrible, called Mobland, which is just what you expect of a John Travolta movie in 2023. He doesn't make him like Saturday Night Fever anymore.
We've got Saturday Night Fever on this weekend, but we've also got The Mummy, which is tomorrow afternoon, and here's the clip. And huge thanks to Van Connor. Remember, Adam Ball and Van on their podcast Off Screen, dropping at 8 o'clock this morning. Here's The Mummy.
Mr. O'Connell, can you look me in the eye and guarantee me that this isn't all some kind of a flim-flam? Because if it is, I am warning you, I will feel...
You're warning me? Lady, let me put it this way. My whole damn garrison believed in this so much that without orders, they marched halfway across Libya and into Egypt to find that city. And when we got there, all we found was sand and blood. Let me get your bags.
Yes, you're right. Filthy, rude, complete scoundrel, nothing to like there at all.
Very good offering there from Van Connor, of course. 3 from him, 3 from me. We're live till 5 on talkSPORT and talkRADIO.